Before its annexation by Japan, Korea had been ruled by the same royal family for just over 500 years. In 1910, when Korea ceased to exist as an independent state, its royal family went with it. Yet, when Japan's empire fell and Korea became a free country again, why didn't it restore the royal family? Why did Korea opt to become a republic? So, in the late 19th century, after Japan defeated China in the First Sino-Japanese War, China lost its stranglehold over Korea. Sensing an opportunity to safeguard Korean independence, Emperor Gojong declared the creation of the Korean Empire, named as such because it was not an empire. This upset the Japanese, but Gojong was confident that they wouldn't do anything because Russia stood as a counter to balance them in the region. That was until Japan defeated them in 1905, after which Korea became a Japanese puppet state. The Koreans weren't exactly happy about this, but the rest of the world ignored their plight because upsetting Japan over something as globally insignificant as Korea wasn't worth it. These efforts led to the Japanese government forcing out the emperor and replacing him with his son, Sunjong. This new emperor was much better behaved, and he handed over most of the government's competencies to Japan. In 1910, the Japanese formalized the arrangement with the annexation of Korea, and with that there was no need for a royal family there. Sunjong died without heirs in 1926, and Japan would rule over Korea until its own defeat in 1945. When that happened, Soviet forces had advanced to here. The US and USSR had agreed to divide Korea between them until the Korean government was able to take over the running of the country. The original plan was to allow Britain and China to also run some of the country, but the US and USSR figured that those two didn't need to be included, and so they weren't. Which meant that the only power that actually liked monarchy was out, which certainly didn't help. And given that the last people to actually run the place independently served the Korean monarchy, why weren't they invited to return? Well, there were several reasons. The first was that simply it had been 35 years since an independent Korean government had existed, and its former leaders were somewhat too dead to help. Those that had worked afterwards had been collaborators with the Japanese and so weren't exactly popular. Furthermore, the heir to the Korean throne, Yi-eun, had also collaborated with the Japanese and married a Japanese princess, none of which screamed Free Korea. When the US occupied the south of the country, it sought to form a provisional government, and after some bribe-related shenanigans, it chose Syngman Rhee as its leader. Now, there were still some that called for the restoration of the monarchy at this point, but the Americans weren't really interested. Whilst monarchs were firmly anti-communist, so was Rhee, who also wasn't interested in sharing power and had his moments of repressive murder to make sure of that. It also goes without saying that in the north of the country, the USSR-sponsored leaders weren't exactly okay with the return of the monarchy anywhere across the peninsula. When the Korean War began in 1950, the monarchy ceased to matter in any way, and even after the fighting had stopped, Rhee banned members of the royal family from returning to the country. This was lifted in 1963, at which point the Koreas had been republics for so long that the idea of providing a monarchy that very few even remembered wasn't a serious proposal.